Remember when Donald and the GOP tried to convince the American people that his administration wouldn't have anything to do or be influenced in any way by Project 2025? Well, let's see how that's working out for us.
How long is this review going to take? And when does the federal funding for these programs resume?
Well, in the original executive order that addressed NGOs, foreign aid, and other grants, that was a 90-day review process, as you know, Jake. But again, more fundamentally, I think we're missing the big point here. Do you believe, does anyone believe, that an unaccountable, career-tenured bureaucrat should be able to approve vast sums of money for the projects that they personally agree with, that no accountable employee in the federal government has reviewed?
I'm literally asking about Meals on Wheels. I mean, you know,
we are.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you.
I have to admit, people like that little Nazi Stephen Miller talking about accountability is quite something. But yes, that was Stephen Miller, who is a Nazi. And this is not a recommendation. This is just a belief of some people that it's okay to punch Nazis. He's also Donald's chief of staff, deputy chief of staff and head of America First Legal, which is a key advisory group to Project 2025. Miller actively promoted Project 2025 through the Heritage Foundation, even appearing in some videos along with some other recognizable quote unquote cast members.
I'm the president of the Conservative Partnership Institute,
vice president of Hillsdale College,
the head of the Office of Justice Programs,
assistant secretary for public affairs,
senior advisor to the president,
assistant press secretary.
Project 2025 has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Trump campaign, a future Trump transition, a future Trump administration. You showed that clip there. I was asked to record an advice video for young students, which I did, about how to be ethical, upright, hardworking young staffers. I didn't have anything to do with what books or whatever they put in the background of my shot. That was the beginning, the middle, the end. And I have publicly disavowed Project 2025, as has President Trump and everybody else.
What a lineup. I can't wait to see that movie. Who am I kidding? We're living it, and it's not good. Before we dive in further, please take a second to like and share this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and then click on the bell. That way you will be alerted every time new videos drop. Thank you for listening to our new podcast. We are now on all podcast platforms. Follow us here and please give us a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find us. Okay, back to the nightmare that is Project 2025. We're not even 2 weeks in, and Project 2025's influence is already visible and undeniable, from drastic policy shifts to staffing decisions made with the goal of implementing the dark vision of Project 2025's malign architects. Let's break it down because there's a lot going on here. First, let's call Project 2025 exactly what it is. It is a fascist manifesto that has as its goal the thorough dismantling of the federal government and ultimately the United States Constitution. Crafted by the Heritage Foundation, the document serves as a roadmap for the myriad ways in which a Republican administration can take an axe to every single institution and agency. Here's how it's already shaping Donald's administration. The dismantling of federal agencies. Donald has pushed to eliminate the Commerce and Education departments, a core project of 2025, and his pick for Secretary of Commerce is Howard Lutnick, a billionaire who, like Donald, believes the United States should implement across-the-board tariffs. Mimicking his probably soon-to-be boss, Lutnick said this during his confirmation hearing, quote, "We are treated horribly by the global trading environment, and we can use tariffs to create reciprocity, fairness, and respect," unquote. So apparently the guy who's going to be leading commerce also doesn't know how tariffs work. He added that Canada and Mexico could escape having tariffs levied against them if they shut their borders, because that's a thing. We're also watching the militarization of border control. Executive orders expand military presence at the border, mirroring Project 2025's mass deportation strategy, ordering the deployment of 1,500 active duty service members and intelligence assets to the southern border last week just 36 hours after issuing an executive order on the matter. We're seeing an alarming government purge and loyalty appointments. Donald reinstated so-called Schedule F, which enables mass firings without due process of career civil servants to replace them with loyalists. Just this week, it included the following. Reforming the federal workplace. We have John McEntee, the White House personnel chief, who has been tasked with ensuring every federal hire aligns with the administration's agenda and demonstrates loyalty to Donald. That is not how any of this is supposed to work. In the last 10 days, the new administration has made a massive push to gut civil service. Several leaders at the FBI have been forced out in an illegal purge. The Department of Justice is being hamstrung by the mass firings of career prosecutors who worked on the 2 criminal cases against Donald. In other agencies, lifelong civil servants are being forced from their jobs or resigning in protest, only to be replaced by pliant hacks like Chuck Ezel, a low-level branch chief and yes man who is currently acting director of the Office of Personnel Management. Donald even instituted a buyout for federal employees this week. And then we have the now notorious federal funding freeze. Donald's Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, led by Project 2025 architect Russ Vought, halted billions of dollars in aid, including school meals and veteran support. Attacks on DEI and LGBTQ plus rights are rampant. Federal funding for DEI programs has been slashed, and transgender military bans have been reinstated. On his first day in office, Donald signed an executive order mandating that only 2 genders be recognized. And those would be the genders in which you're born. On Tuesday of this week, he signed another executive order banning federal support for gender-affirming treatments for minors, calling them, quote, chemical and surgical mutilation, unquote. It directs agencies to cut coverage from federal programs and threatens funding for hospitals and schools that provide such care. Critics warn that the policy is based on stigma rather than medical reality, since surgeries on youth are exceedingly rare. But again, that is the point. They don't care about the science. They care about the stigma. We've been dealing with this for a long time, but it has reached a new level. That would be the restriction on abortion rights. There's a push to rename the Department of Health and Human Services the Department of Life, which would be especially ironic if the virulently anti-vaccine Bob Kennedy is confirmed as that agency's secretary. Meanwhile, LGBTQ plus and military personnel is being shaped by the absolutely awful and misogynistic and homophobic Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who is implementing Project 2025's gender identity purge in the military. And then we have climate policy reversal. Donald withdrew from environmental protections for the climate, clean air, and water, while simultaneously ordering massive expansion of oil, gas, and coal extraction from public lands and waters, which, according to the Center for Biological Diversity, could lead to irreversible climate catastrophe if they go unchallenged. Not surprisingly, climate-focused agencies are being gutted. And then we have the implementation of Project 2025's Christian nationalist ideology. Project 2025 backed policies enforcing conservatism in the government are actually going through. There's also a breathtaking dismantling of DEI policies throughout all agencies, which, of course, is being led by Donald's personal pocket Nazi, Stephen Miller, again, the deputy chief of staff. Miller is forcing anti-DEI policies as well as forcing through sweeping changes to immigration.
As President Trump said today, over the last 4 years, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and air traffic control under Joe Biden have been dedicated to a mission not of public safety, not of safe aviation, but of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they've pushed an agenda trying to advance social engineering, political ideology, trying to hire people at the FAA who are not capable or competent for the job. And that completely changes the agency culture.
Let's start with this. What does DEI stand for? It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why are DEI policies necessary? Well, because for hundreds of years, the federal government has discriminated against everybody who's not a white man, and usually everybody who's not a rich white man or a rich white Christian man. So they're necessary. Also, why is that good that we expand the pool of people from which we're hiring? Well, it gives us access to even more incredibly highly qualified people to fill necessary important jobs, like air traffic controllers, for example. So, for the little pocket Nazi to be saying that DEI is responsible for things like that horrific tragedy yesterday is not just wrong, it's grossly insulting. Especially since the only reason people like him and Donald and Elon Musk have their jobs is because they're white guys. As we saw yesterday, without evidence of any kind whatsoever, Donald falsely blamed DEI policies for yesterday's disaster near Washington, D.C.
Office, they put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. And then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have.
As if we needed yet another demonstration of Donald showing us that he knows absolutely nothing about absolutely anything. But the bottom line is that in the world of these fascists, only white men are deserving of jobs or capable of doing the work. We're also looking at mass deportations. The administration is executing the largest deportation effort in United States history, and the weaponization of the Department of Justice is continuing. He is now using the Justice Department to target political opponents. And for example, as I mentioned earlier, any prosecutors who were involved in Jack Smith's cases against Donald, that would be the January 6th case and the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents case, they've all been fired, and many of them are lawyering up. So what does this do to people in the civil service? Puts enormous amount of stress on them, financial and emotional and psychological. By the way, civil servants don't make a lot of money. They don't have somebody raising money through a PAC to pay lawyers for them like Donald does. Also, civil servants, because they are loyal to the Constitution and generally speaking, overwhelmingly, in fact, nonpartisan, they have job security, which they no longer do because of Schedule F. So this is all going to get exponentially worse if 4 Republicans don't have, I don't know, is it courage? Is it decency? Is it sanity to put Kash Patel in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation? So who are the people driving Project 2025? So Donald's attempt to distance himself from Project 2025 and deny any connection to the project during his campaign, obviously a lie. And he even claimed that his administration would bar its contributors from holding key roles. His administration, however, is filled with key figures tied directly to Project 2025. And there's a chart that I'm going to show you that shows a breakdown of how many people in Donald's administration are involved with Project 2025. After winning the election, the administration began immediately, during the transition, began appointing key figures directly involved with Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, signaling a stark reversal from his campaign rhetoric. These appointees include prominent architects like the aforementioned Russell Vogt at OMB. He helped write Project 2025 and is now the architect of the budget freeze and federal job purge. And again, he is current nominee to head the Office of Management and Budget. Let's take a look at what he had to say at his most recent confirmation hearing last week.
I absolutely will abide by the Constitution at all times.
And your interpretation does not, pardon the pun, trump the interpretation of the Supreme Court or at current practice on the books?
Again, administration goes through a very, very extensive policy process with the lawyers of the Department of Justice to abide by the Constitution.
You can see how this bureaucratic, wonky answer you keep giving, right? You're claiming to be an outsider that says you're going to shake things up, but you're giving the most wonky answers.
It wasn't wonky. It was evasive, because the answer to that question was, yes, I will follow the Constitution and the Supreme Court, not whatever Donald's agenda is. Can't answer that question? You cannot be hired. Of course, I'm sure the Republicans will see it differently. The new acting press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, promoted Project 2025's messaging. And you may have recognized her in the video from earlier. She's now taken on the job to spout messages like this.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
It's only the best people, right, Donald? Then there's Brendan Carr, who's been nominated to be the FCC chair. He actually wrote the Project 2025 chapter on the agencies and is known to advance conservative media policies, which is bad. But honestly, with the likes of Paramount and Disney obeying in advance, I'm not entirely sure that Carr is going to have a lot of work to do. Tom Homan, who we've discussed many times because he is an awful thug and terrible person, is the so-called border czar. He previously led ICE during the first Trump administration. He's another Project 2025 contributor, overseeing U.S. border security without needing Senate confirmation and essentially being as cruel as humanly possible to other human beings whom he does not believe are human. Donald's shadow president, Elon Musk, is also making moves. While he was not officially tied to Project 2025, his influence definitely mirrors its goals. Just look at the federal agency takeover. Musk allies now hold key government positions. Then there's DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which is designed to eliminate federal oversight entirely while robbing our treasury blind in order to enrich billionaires like Musk and all of the other tech bro oligarchs. Democrats are calling Project 2025 out as an authoritarian power grab.
Well, first and foremost, I think we should just say no to Trump's nominees if they are going to become the hatchet men and women for all of these programs. Now, let's be honest. This is Project 2025. The guy who orchestrated Project 2025 is now Trump's nominee to be the head of the Office of Management and Budget, controlling the spigot of federal money that goes to families all across the country that have been dependent upon, reliant upon that funding for decades. So now the curtain has been pulled back, and Project 2025 is the Office of Management and Budget, and he's going to be the absolute extension of Trump in the White House as king, is how he would want it, determining which programs live or die. It's unconstitutional. it's cruel, and it will not stand. But we are going to have to get up and fight.
Will it not stand? The problem is, I don't know that we can answer that question definitively yet. There are legal challenges. There will be many, many more legal challenges. For example, a federal judge temporarily blocked Donald's illegal and unconstitutional funding freeze. But we have the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court to contend with down that road. There has been public backlash. In addition to lawsuits, there have been protests that are being mounted against these policies. We need more of that, please. And if there's congressional opposition, Senate Democrats are fighting against the key Project 2025 appointees. However, they have no power. It's great to see them fight, but they need to fight across the board. No one of these nominees or any of Donald's nominees should get one single Democratic vote. It won't change anything, but it sends a message. So let's start doing more of that too, please. Project 2025 is not just a blueprint. It's already, we've seen it in 10 days, already shaping the second Trump administration, which is moving with more coordination than ever because they had 4 years out of power to plan how best and how quickly, systematically to enact extreme policies that not just dismantle our agencies, but threaten our very democracy. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.